Last by Jeremy Trudeau. Today we're going to be talking about active oxygenation versus passive oxygenation. In layman's terms, what that means is, this question posed earlier, active oxygenation is any type of oxygenation you give to a patient with an advanced airway, versus passive oxygenation is when you put a non-rebreather mask, which is an oxygen mask, which we'll be talking about in detail. Displayed here with this visual aid. Basically, the American Heart Association is coming out with new protocols calling for, in the event of cardiopulmonary arrest, cardiac arrest, to give chest compressions only and put a non-rebreather mask on the patient. The idea behind it being that the cavity in the chest, that when you're giving the chest compressions, creates a negative pressure which draws oxygen into the lungs. And there's enough oxygen in the blood to supply oxygen to the patient for at least 10 minutes. That's what they're saying. So, the question here that I'm posing is this a good thing or a bad thing? Any opinions on you guys? What do you think?
I think it'll be a good thing where you have limited rescuers.
Meaning one or two?
Yes. It'll provide, they still get oxygen, but you still have another pair of hands there if you need something else, rather than somebody having to constantly be on the back valve mask.
So that's definitely a pro or a con. It could be a pro or a con.
Could be both.
Yeah.
You said it's only good for 10 minutes though?
The oxygen in the blood, yes.
So the mask, it'll keep oxygen?
The oxygen flowing. That's the idea behind it, is if you're doing chest compressions only, the mask will keep oxygen going into the bloodstream as you're creating the negative pressure in the chest to draw the air in. Basically, for healthcare providers. Now, I am for the passive oxygenation for laymen, or like you said, in resources where you have limited rescuers, such as one or two rescuers at a time. I definitely agree with that. The problem here is that we run into problems where the patient can aspirate, vomit, things like that will happen, and that's why I'm more for the active oxygenation for a healthcare provider. Now, as a person walking down the street and you don't have your tools, you're just a citizen, and someone collapses in front of you and goes into cardiac arrest. Chest compressions only is more than enough, based on the new American Heart Association's protocols that they're coming out with. Because I mean, you're going to be giving mouth to mouth, and I mean, I don't know about you, but unless it's like my close family member, I'm not.
Yeah, not putting my mouth. That's just how
I think we can all agree on that. Okay, and like we already went over, the American Heart Association has new protocols on rescue breathing. Is this an effective change? Which we kind of went over. You think that, if you got limited rescuers, absolutely. Now let's talk about some of the pros to active oxygenation for example. Now, you got more than one rescuer working on a patient. As a paramedic, you're going to be doing certain things with drugs. That's why you're going to want the guy on the chest compressions. In that situation, do you really think, is it better or worse to just go on the chest, let you do your thing, your round with your drugs, and not even worry about the oxygen, and then go to the advanced airway once someone can take over for chest compressions once you're done doing your first round of drugs? What do you think about that?
I do agree with that. After your first round, when you've already established your IV, you're in your first round, and you're doing your 2 minutes of CPR, that's more than enough time to get a secure airway in there. Right?
I agree with that part, right?
Alright.
The secure airway is pretty imperative in the
Right. Yeah, as I put here, I'm 100% against it when you got healthcare providers on scene, if it's adequate, if you have adequate rescuers, because like you said, you get vomited in the airway, and you don't want that. And pausing chest compressions is always a bad thing. Because once you get that circulation going, you got the oxygen going, every time you stop, you got to start all over again, getting that oxygen back up. And nobody really wants that. And if it's your loved one, you're going to want someone to do everything they can for them and do the most good. I'd say the main con to passive oxygenation is, like we're going over, the vomit, aspiration in the lungs. I mean, we've all been on codes, even with an advanced airway, if you don't have the right thing going on with suction and whatnot, the tube will fill at the bottom. Yep, and that's a bad day, because you're not doing any good.
Your airway is done.
Yeah, it's done. at that point, I mean, what good are you really doing for the patient? Absolutely not. So, I mean, I think we're all really kind of on the same page here with that, you know, the passive versus active. I mean, you know, I get it, and like we had a recent thing with the medical director here, where we went completely to the passive oxygenation, which is in the Lake County IMS manual and protocols, Lake County protocols for EMS, meaning emergency medical service or incident management system, where we were just completely going to passive oxygenation per the old medical director. And then once we had a code that actually happened with this department, he was taken to the hospital, the new medical director is wondering what's going on, like why hasn't this patient been intubated, why hasn't some kind of advanced airway been placed in this patient? And it came up to, the protocol was, oh, we're only supposed to use passive oxygenation. I agree with the new medical director when she changed it back to, yes, intubate the patient, yes, place the king tube in the patient, something like that. I'm gonna display the king tube and its placement here. Okay, so this is a king tube. This is something that can be placed in the airway by a paramedic or an EMT. So it technically doesn't have to be an ALS skill. This is also a BLS skill.
That's what I like about the king tube.
Yeah.
You get to doing your own thing, start your line.
Absolutely. I'm definitely all for the king tube placement right away as soon as someone's able to come off the drugs and ingest, because those are the two priorities, obviously. So let's just go over in conclusion what we were talking about here. Passive oxygenation is always acceptable as a private citizen. I would say that everyone can agree with that, right? If you walk up to someone, they go down, it's cardiac arrest, you really don't want to be putting your mouth on a complete stranger. 2, active oxygenation as a healthcare provider is the best way to do the most good for a patient that is suffering from cardiopulmonary arrest as a healthcare provider. And we have the tools and the training to use it, so why not use it, right? All this information can be found on the American Heart Association website, AHA.org, and the new protocols for Lake County EMS. Any questions? All right, guys, well, I think that's about it. Thanks for my little thing.
Thank you.